Dominique Cote and Kate Berta. Dominique is the owner and founder of COSOE, a consulting firm that focuses organizational effectiveness SAM roadmaps. She helps cultural shift from executive sponsorship to building the center of excellence and account-based marketing, as well as training on skills and processes. Prior to starting COSOE, Dominique held positions of increasing responsibility in the area of sales, marketing, general management, and CAM part of global commercial excellence. She had the opportunity to manage teams in more than 36 countries, leading activities to optimize profitability and enabling deployment of new commercial go-to-market models. She's been on the SAMA board of directors since 2011. Kate is the founder and CEO of Kate Berta and Company, a consulting firm that focuses on sales, sales strategy, and marketing. Prior to creating her own firm, Kate held a number of senior-level sales and marketing positions, most notably at Hyatt Hotels, where she was responsible for the sales and revenue of 168 hotels, totaling $152 million in revenue. Both Dominique and Kate are also principals with the Summit Group, one of SAMA's certification partners. Kate and Dominique, take it away.
Thank you, Libby. Good afternoon, good day, everyone. Kate and I are really excited to be with you today to talk about account-based marketing. In the SAM world, we're true believer that marketing needs to be more involved, and there's an opportunity to really not only collaborate, but bring marketing as a fully integrated part of. As mentioned, Kate and I have both been practitioners, so we come from each of us come with about 30 years in the corporate world where we've been in your shoes. We've been SAM, we've been SAM leaders, and we've led program office as well as marketing. So after all these years in the corporate world, we decided to devote time to this journey and really help the SAM journey and customer centricity and make it being the purpose in our life and build our own organization and company to do this. So we'll be sharing today our perspective and our learning, and hopefully a few stories that you're gonna like. And we really hope, as Libby was saying, that this session is an engaging and interactive one. So please really don't hesitate to raise your hand and put question in the chat box. And Libby, we count on your help to make sure that we don't miss anyone there. We're also during our time, thank you. We're also during our time together, we'll be providing you with tools and framework because, again, as a SAM, sometimes being a lonely role, we want to help and facilitate some of the change that is needed to really integrate marketing within the account team. So finally, we'll include also some of the best practice and some of the research that we get from the work that we both do. So to look at the objective of today, we split it in 4 kind of sector and section that builds on each other. So we'll ensure to stop at every end of a section to make sure that if there's question, we can answer them. We'd like to first, if we look at the objective, first is to align on what is account-based marketing. There's many things being said about marketing, digital marketing, and all of this. So what do we mean by account-based marketing? Then we'd like to look at the customer buying journey and how can shifting our thinking, not only to look at what we call, and we're going to talk more about it, but the point of sales, but really think about earlier in the journey of how can we capture and be more engaged earlier in the journey of the customer and their customer buying decision. We'll look at connecting marketing at the SAM, the team table, and hopefully provide you a few tools that you can use to do this. And then look at how you can ignite what we call the internal integration. And in this section, we'll have a few kind of framework to help articulate this. But again, it's something that you can use not only on the internal but and external. But we thought to kind of give example of the internal organization because we hear everywhere that internal organizations are often a lot harder to navigate than our customers. So before we kind of look at, and we'll have you engaged, and hopefully we're going to be able to have you work on some of these principles that we aim to share with you. But before we go there, we wanted to share with you some insight and foundation in terms of aligning. So the first is some of the meta trends, and the meta trends in the customer buying journey. And I think this is probably not new for any of you on the line, but really just to kind of remind ourselves that about 75% of our customers are really conducting more than half their research before reaching out to anyone. And they do that through social media, their digital channel, and to do their research. And on top of that, Harvard Business Review looked at research and looked at 90% of the decision makers don't answer and never respond to cold call. I know I certainly don't. So how do we, so much of the thinking is done prior in this to buying and really making the decision to buy and acquire something. So we really need to revise how we engage in a more relevant and earlier manner. And I think what we're seeing also with COVID, it's even more important. So how to shift to this? So this was done just before COVID, in fact. It was done by Neil Patel, who's really a marketing thought leader. And he did conduct some research, and the outcome was that he looked at, again now, less than 3% was done in 2019, so very recent. And less than 3% of our customers are actually clicking through emails, like at least externally. I hope they do a bit more internally. But they don't click through emails and they don't read them. If you can personalize them, usually you can increase that by 6 times. But personalizing does require a lot of work. It's not about putting their name on the top of the email. It's really being relevant to them. And in the same research and customer insight, one thing that attracted our attention, Kate and I, is that looking also at the website and how they visit the website, is 75% of customers are actually frustrated with the content that they find in most of the website because they find it irrelevant to them. So in light of that, continuing on the same research, what Neil Patel found in that research is that companies that are using account-based marketing really are able to generate more than 200% more revenue and better returns. So that is why, like Kate and I are so passionate in that SAM journey to have marketing at the table, to really have them fully integrated, because having customized and personalized based, account-based marketing is really important to be able to succeed. So if you can, just put in the chat, what is account-based marketing for you? Just write in the chat box if you can. Anyone has a definition of what they see as being? Okay, so tailored, customized, communication. Yeah, from Max. Good to see you, Max. Thank you. Totally, yes. It's about, again, personalized, customized, tailored, and being able to communicate, as marketing is a key point of communication and point of connection. Relevant to that account. Thank you, Peggy. So I see a lot. Customized marketing to support a strategic account plan to match the goals of all partners. Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. Like, again, it's about the teamwork. It's about being part of the plan. And as we see at the table, and customer specific marketing versus standardized, for sure. Like, especially in today's world with all of the artificial intelligence, the data that we have, like, they're really a great opportunity to leverage that and be even more tailored and being more customer specific. Okay, so in our mind also a way of looking at it, like, again, which is again totally aligned with what you were saying, is really ability to leverage what you have also in your own organization and really look at everything that you have available to get something and to be part of that journey of getting a solution that is the closest to your customer needs. So this is, again, I'm not going to go into detail for this one, but you can see again our kind of view of brand versus the account-based marketing. And for me, it's still about marketing. It's just that the role of marketers need to evolve. It's not that the actual word marketing is changing or has disappeared. It's really that we need to change the way that we used to do marketing, like everything else. It's about being more outside in versus inside out, really looking. And as you all said, being more personalized, being more agile, being able to be more scalable. So it's really looking at like having a box of Lego blocks. That's often the analogy that I use. And being able to go beyond the product and services that you have, but look at other things that are available at your organization to be able to build something with those blocks that are going to be customized and personalized to each of the accounts. So when marketing and Sam work together, and again, Kate and I believe that marketing can be even more involved, is there's nobody more than the Sam that have that customer intimacy. You bring the customer insight on the business, financial environment. You really have the knowledge of the customer. The marketing, on the other hand, can bring a little bit of a broader business insight and leverage what I was saying in terms of artificial intelligence, data, and the market research, market information to help provide that 360 view. So that synergy is really kind of helping to really have a better and broader view of the customer. And what you have on the right-hand side of this slide is really what we call our co-creation process for marketing. So it's about marketing helping to understand the customer, for sure, and their needs by providing more, I would say, insightful data and being able to have translated data into this. Being part of the solution design, designing that solution, because marketing often have, being headquarter based, have a view of what's available internally, being able to assess if it's commercial viable, and being working with the SAM to do this, continuously provide that business intelligence or that insight to be able to continue having, like, to help you as SAM to be able to bring something that's relevant to your account and your stakeholder. And then last but not least, monitor and the customer environment to be able to always provide some kind of review of information and relevant and updated information. So here's just an analogy that we often use, but it's kind of the analogy of the diver that we use, where marketing, we see marketing as being the air to the diver being the SAM. So by providing more air, and the diver is able to have a better view of the ocean floor and be able to see broader and better. And again, I think we can hear the passion, but that's why we're true believers that you need to work together to be able to even bring broader and better insight and value to your customer. Any question on this framework? Just kind of quickly, we're going to deep dive a little bit more, but I just want to make sure that if there's any question, we answer them before we move on. Okay. Kate, do you want to take us through the customer buying journey?
Absolutely. So within the customer journey, we're going to take the next block of time here and really look at diving a little bit deeper into the customer and looking at how that frames up for us. So some critical success factors to understanding and really using the customer buying journey is, number one, doing this work a lot of times with the amount of time that we have and we're able to apply, as well as getting other parts of our organization around the customer buying journey, focus on the most profitable clients or customers, or because a lot of times what we do is we focus on those that give us the most revenue, or those accounts that are the most revenue. We're going to kind of push you to look at what are the ones that are most profitable to business, as well as those that can be optimized and grown. Of course, we talked about, targeted and customizing. Given the chat, all of us kind of align on, this need for understanding the customer and having it targeted. And with Neil Patel's research even shows that 6 times more attraction, as Dominique said. And it's not about how we sell anymore. It's not about how we do it, but it's more about how do they buy. And what the customer buying journey does is it really gets us to think about where they are both mentally in that whole journey. And then lastly, we talk about, Dominique and I share a great love for not just the collaboration of sales and marketing coming together, but this whole integration, that we're integrated around that customer experience, around that customer buying journey. So let's kind of break this down into what does this customer buying journey look like? Well, before we do that, let's talk about kind of this the traditional approach of marketing, not only just marketing from the brand marketing or enterprise marketing, however you refer to it, in this more traditional sense, to this new approach of being more fully integrated. So what you see here is a very traditional approach to the whole marketing and sales and really pricing continuum. So at the beginning, we always talked about pull marketing and how do we pull customers into our product, from them to be going from unaware to aware, then sales to be pushing the product or getting out there to. I always think of this as the pushy salesperson is how we always remembered it when it was first taught to us. And then lastly is the revenue management or price modeling that we have. So this pull push price in this very linear fashion. And what we're going to kind of explain and showcase today is this whole idea of all three of the disciplines within your revenue trifecta are really holding hands and running across the street together. And the focus of these three disciplines is really around how do we engage with the customer. It's not anymore about marketing going and then sales showing up later, and then we talk about our pricing, but how each one of these parts of the trilogy show up at the point of where we can have opportunities to connect with the customer, to elevate not only elevate our position, but have more of the mind share of the customer. So let's take a deep dive into the customer buying journey itself. So at the very beginning, we have people going from unaware and not even knowing that they need a product, or not even knowing that you're even out there, or not even understanding that there's a need out there. And it's interesting to see how in today's world, in the digital economy, as well as in digital marketing, how influencers are becoming more and more widely used and recognizable in this shift from going from the unaware to, of course, the aware. Then our customers go through this whole exploration of understanding more about the product. And then they go into the research. And then they go into the validation of understanding the price that, maybe it's a price, price is maybe what they needed, all of the different factors that go into that validation. And then hopefully they buy, and then hopefully they repeat buy, and then they become a raging fan and an advocate. So here's what's interesting, and I want to take a pause, because a lot of times people have been looking at the customer buying journey when it starts a little bit later in one of the phases around when we recognize or they show up having questions about our product or our services. Yet we don't acknowledge what it's taken them to get there. So what we like to talk about is the difference between the point of sale and the point of inspiration, and where we like to take our clients and the teams that we work with is going way beyond to when they showed up at our door, or when sales found them, or whatever, to when was the point of inspiration? When did they say, go from this unaware to this awareness of this whole journey, and then target out all of these opportunities for connection. So to further explain this, we have a story. I was doing work with a resort in the Poconos, and one of their most profitable customers, there was about 5 that they were targeting, was a younger Hasidic Jewish couple. They saw this huge influx and monetary, not only monetary spend, frequency, recency within the Hasidic Jewish couples. Now, of course, location was great too, the Philadelphia and New York areas. So they started doing a lot of campaigns around the point of sale, where they were looking at promotions and campaigns and everything. And at that point, the promotions and the campaigns were really around this product-driven, price-driven sale. So we said, you know what, let's take a look and let's go a little bit further and say, what was the point of inspiration? Because we've seen this increase. We want to understand it more. And so both marketing and sales got around the table, and we started exploring, why is this uptick? Why are we seeing this? And how long have we been seeing it for? Come to find out, what was happening is the couples were having problems within their marriage. Maybe they were just getting married and kind of figuring out how this is going to work. And as we peeled it back, what we understood as their point of inspiration was not, hey, I got to get away. But the point of inspiration was actually their rabbi, where they were going to their rabbi and saying, hey, you know, we need help. We want your advisement. And so once we understood that that was their point of inspiration, we were able to reach out to the rabbis who gave us a whole different customer buying journey for us to understand all of the opportunities to connect with these young couples before they even went to look at the campaigns or promotions that this one resort was pushing out. So here's what we learned is, not only if you're kind of in this point of sale, you're really battling market share. You're really trying to get, you know, volume and velocity and things like that. At the point of inspiration, what you're able to get is mind share. And if I'm able to own their mind share at the rabbi, and we're going to follow this story a little bit through our time, what I'm able to do is not only to help the rabbi in his congregation with his synagogue and temple, but I'm also able to help him create a whole wellness program, as well as connect with those younger couples before they even think about getting away. And with Mindshare, gives us share of wallet as well as market share. Alrighty, so let's take a look at it from mapping the patient journey.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I just love that story. So yeah, to build on Kate's example, what I wanted to do here is, obviously we have a few device and pharma, a few people from device and pharma, like I look at Max and Jeff online. I think when we look at, and when we work, Kate and I, with this customer buying journey, obviously in the life science sector, there's often kind of the pushback of, yeah, but we're in a highly regulated environment and we do not interact directly with the patient. And that's true except of patient association and things like that, and especially outside of US, where, like, again, DTC campaigns are not authorized. I understand that. At the same time, even if we're not, like, again, able to, and this is not kind of the people we're kind of communicating to or interacting with, it doesn't prevent us from taking the patient journey into account. And I think that's even more critical, to look at our stakeholder and their stakeholder, which is the patient, and be able to really map it. So the same kind of formula and the same journey, I would say, apply to mapping the patient journey. So you start with, again, the unaware phase being like life before diagnostic, and then having symptoms and the disease presentation. And you move then from unaware to being aware. And that's where you get diagnosed. And you start being either in denial or acceptance. Obviously, it depends on what is the actual diagnostic, but just to give you kind of generic way of looking and kind of integrating this framework into the life science. Then you look at exploring. So patients are getting information. You want to have more information. You want to know what's going on, what you can do, what are some of your options, and your part, because patients are more and more involved in those treatment decision. What is your first treatment decision? What are you going to kind of start by doing? And then you go into the validation phase, where it's, again, treatment experience, and you look at troubleshooting or exploring options depending on that first experience, which comes to either having that, instead of purchase, it's maybe the prescription, or being at the stage where you have either maintenance or relapse. You go between maintenance and relapse and then look at treatment and explore, or you control or disease-free. So again, the same journey can apply and be used in any industry. So so when you've mapped then, and it does help us after that by having the earlier kind of point of inspiration the same to the point of prescription, if I may say, in helping us define the opportunity for connection. So going to the patient journey and a little bit further, then we can build the patient journey and look at their what we call the value drivers or their pain point. And those pain point in that patient journey helps you kind of look at opportunity for connection. So, for example, if you look at managing, second one being managing the complexity of my disease, again, the so what in this is having the information they need to understand their condition. And by really looking throughout, having done the patient, the customer, the patient journey, looking at what are some of the patient drivers in that journey and pain point, you can start kind of understanding the so what and using this to define opportunity for connection that are earlier than being kind of actually in the system, and being able to help also your stakeholder build some of those opportunity for connection. So it allows us to shift our thinking, again, for the point of sales or prescription, to really that point of aspiration to connect earlier, understand the broader the view, and then putting ourselves not only in the customer shoes, but also in helping our stakeholders to also have that view. So let us work a little bit on it, if you're okay with that. What you have here is what Kate and I use usually when we do these workshops, which is usually a little bit longer, but which we call the account worksheet. And it's a way of putting together in a very visual, very succinct and summarize how can you work at looking at your customer and how can you select your customer, and then building your customer journey and your customer buying journey, and being able to build on the story. So if we go back to what Kate was just telling in terms of the story of the Poconos and the Hasidic Jewish couple, if you look at the customer, there was different kind of segment that they looked at. So Kate, can you explain a bit and tell us, because these are very different customer segment, how you came to look at the Hasidic Jewish couple as being the most profitable one or selected?
Yeah, well, so there was about 5 others that we looked at, and we did do the same work with the three other most profitable segments. One being the LGBTQ group that would come in for a getaway, and then kind of this neat we call them the weekend NASCAR group that would want to get away. And each of them had their own very distinct customer buying journeys and points of inspiration. And we could have done many of them, but the truth of the matter is, if we're really looking, for highest and best use of our marketing and sales time, we took a look at what was the most profitable and looked at not only the revenue, but the cost of acquisition to be able to rate them, as well as not only are they which ones are the most profitable, but which ones can we optimize and grow? Even though they may be, maybe the most profitable and making us, contributing a lot of revenue, we were looking at how do we grow? How do we meet some of our growth targets? And so the optimization portion was not only, from data that we had as far as market share data and share of wallet, but there was also, within this project, there was also not a lot of data sometimes. So we had to really be subjective and talk through, particularly within that optimization, which ones deserve the higher score on this worksheet for us to prioritize and tackle.
Right. So so basically the profitability in Optimize does have a kind of a view of also including gut feeling, not necessarily being based on a scientific kind of formula to achieve that number.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we had some of the areas we had really great data. Some it was a little bit sparse, and so we had to either use a proxy and use our gut. But all of it, the cost of doing nothing, which we're going to talk about later, was much greater than us taking the risk and making some assumptions.
So if we move now that you have your customer segment to really looking at your customer buying journey, maybe starting with your point of inspiration, I guess that again, putting yourself in the shoes of the customer was not necessarily an easy task. So how did you work on it? How did you validate also to make sure that it was not an assumption, but really something that was valuable?
Yeah, so in this Jewish couple grouping, we had consumers and guests that would come and stay, and so we did a great deal of work both on the sales side and on the customer service side to understand a little bit more of them, as well as marketing. So again, all three of these players showed up for us to kind of unpack this information. And then what we found was, hey, the point of inspiration was really the rabbi, which made sense, but wasn't even part of our discussions. We were looking at focus groups, and we were looking at all of these other things that are traditional marketing thinking. And then when we understood that the point of inspiration was the rabbi, that was a reach out from a conversation that changed the whole trajectory of the customer buying journey for this segment, for this persona.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Maybe we can move to, now that, again, we've shared with you the customer buying journey, we've shared an example on how to build it. So let's try to see if we can make you work on this. If you want to introduce the scenario we build?
Yeah. So in your own mind, take off your hat of the job that you currently have, and put yourself into the shoes of a real estate magnate who owns multiple condominium developments through a cool urban city. And we're going to take one. There was actually, this was a project engagement, and we're going to take one of the personas that came across was the newlyweds, Shannon and Dane getting newly married, and start thinking about them and who they are and their journey.
So as you're kind of taking yourself back for some of us into those kind of time in life of being newlyweds, if you really put yourself in those shoes, what we'd like you to do is to put on the chat what could be in that case, as Shannon and Dave being newlyweds starting to think about buying a condo, what could be the point of inspiration that we can after that derive an opportunity to connect. Think about it. Put yourself back in those shoes. Put your ideas in the chat box. Any ideas? I want you to be part of this. Libby, would you have an idea there? As again, let's make you work too. What in your mind could be that point of inspiration if you're in that newlywed?
Future children.
Future children, yes. Starting to have that discussion about how many and when.
Mm-hmm.
And then how to connect with that. So to build on that example, in terms of newlywed, one thing that was done in that is that looking at wedding planners, like something that is used a lot in everywhere when you need to plan your wedding, maybe having them like connect, because here the actual real estate is the point of sales. So what happens before? Thinking about having children. So what would be kind of their journey there, and where could we connect? Planning the wedding. So maybe again, either the wedding shows or the wedding planners, how can we connect with them? And then again, be able to have some of that communication connection at that level. So when they come to the point of sales, we've been able to accompany them in terms of those connections throughout their journey of thinking.
Another good example, or one of the other ones that the most profitable customers that was done this work was newly divorced. And the group was reaching out, like you said, they were thinking about point of sale. And so they were doing a lot of campaigns and promotions with real estate agents. Makes sense, but that's at the point of sale. So the team took kind of a deeper dive and said, hey, who should we connect with at the point of inspiration? And I don't like really the word point of inspiration for somebody who is going through a divorce, but kind of who was kind of the impetus or what was happening at the very beginning there. And so they shifted from that real estate agent, and they shifted all the way back to lawyers and to even therapists, where they were able to connect with them to understand more about the customer's buying journey as they look for an alternative housing opportunity. All right.
So again, the objective of that kind of customer buying journey, being able to really define it, and the more precise you can define it, the better it is in terms of being able to build kind of that that worksheet, is really to be able to differentiate yourself and really be able to connect at earlier point, because again, now more and more of all the research are showing that a lot of things are done before that point of sale. So here is just to show you, the account worksheet is in the slide deck. So that's going to be provided to you after this this webinar. So somebody's going to send it to all the participants. So Kate and I invite you to use it or share it if you're not from the marketing group. Share it with your marketing team and then give us feedback on how it's being valuable, or any feedback you have on using it. But feel free to use it with also your marketing team. So any question on the customer buying journey? Because we're going to move into the next section. Okay, so now that we've looked really at defining our most profitable customer and segmenting our kind of customer base and really the need to be really specific, we looked at the customer journey and we defined, like, again, how to define some of those points of connection to be able to really bring value in all the step of the thinking process and decision making. Now we'd like to look at a little bit, how can you enable and engage with your own organization to really bring maximum value in these points of connection and throughout the customer buying journey.
So we like to talk about some of these value enablers, not only at Summit as well as when we work with companies on the customer buying journey, but we all have these incredible things in our closet and in our garages and things that have been put away, and we've completely forgot how to use these to actually articulate a differentiating point during that opportunity for connection within our own organization. So it's interesting as we think about these, moving up, we were talking about this closet of enablement, right? And not only from our standpoint of what we know within sales, but think of how much more elevated it becomes with marketing at the table, where we have the access to big data, information. So we're able to dive deeper, as Dominique said earlier, that we become that scuba diver and we're able to kind of gain even more insights around that opportunity for connection, and really to be able to use that as an articulated differentiator as we're working with our customers and our accounts.
So looking now to really kind of think about what you have in your closet, you really, as Kate was mentioning, start looking at what you can bring. And hopefully, again, you have a very clean closet in your organization like this. I have to say, our work is finding that, again, it's always hard to know what is available beyond the product and service we have internally. How can we look at other things we can bring? But again, that's a place where when we work with marketing, they have a lot of information, they have a lot of knowledge of the internal organization. And when you bring them to the table, they can bring that value of helping in terms of aligning those with your customer buying journey, being part of that customer journey, but also bringing them in this journey. So let us come back to the Poconos or the Jewish couple example. And maybe now look at the yellows. If you click again, the yellow section in terms of after you've selected your customer, you've looked at your customer buying journey, point of inspiration and opportunity for connection, and really kind of started really populating this worksheet, you look at how can you then, for each of the phase, build your articulated differentiator. Because again, what is different? You want to bring something that's going to be different than the others and really kind of, again, relevant and connected to what your customer needs are. So based on that, Kate, on your example, can you look like, maybe going back, because you talk about the point of inspiration, how did you kind of come with your articulated differentiator there with the Poconos and the Jewish couple?
Well, this was so much fun, and this is why we decided to use this as an example. Is once we got to that point of inspiration, like I said before, the trajectory of this whole program changed, and what, in essence, what we understood was the rabbi was really giving the couple homework per se, as you know, as they were going through this journey, and so we with the rabbi, then we co-created how do we integrate. If you were to say, you know what, you can get away at this resort in the Poconos, but as you do, we are able to co-create with the rabbi this almost wellness path where you know, the couple, when they go out for a picnic, that there's a note in there from their rabbi that we've been able to do that has the homework, so they're able to explore what their advice has been given from their rabbi in this wonderful magical place where there isn't a lot of noise and distractions, and they can focus on that being well as a couple. And so as we kind of laid this whole path out, we were able to say, given this pathway that you've given as an architecture from the rabbi standpoint, how do we bring what we can into that whole roadmap that they laid out for them? And then really being customized not only for the couple, but for rabbi also, because he, of course, wanted to have a healthier congregation, a healthier temple. And so we could even use our survey and our post-stay survey systems, our net promoter scores, to even look at not only how their stay was in the resort in the Poconos, but explore on a customized basis how they felt about the work that they've done for the rabbi and for themselves.
Kate, you and I have often spoken about that, like when in our time of leading marketing, how often like collaboration was there, but people were building those even customer buying journey on one side, and then more sharing than building it together. In this case, I know you share the fact that Sam, marketing, and the rabbi were together. So again, what was the impact of this? Because it is a frustration that often like the silo and department work. And even if you bring collaboration, we don't bring full integration of building these things together and having different voice. So how were you able to achieve that here?
We had them bring them to the table, and I know later in our discussion we're going to talk about, you know, kind of having that internal value communication too. You know, marketing was getting a lot of insights themselves. There was something that was in it for them as well as the rabbi, and so it was really interesting. Those meetings were all of us together, and they each of us kind of had our sweet spot and our blind spot. Whereas marketing could say, goodness, here's all of the things that we could do. And sales was saying, here's all the things that we see from the guest and client standpoint. And the rabbi was saying, you know, here's what I'm seeing from my congregation. And so really kind of coming together in this really integrated fashion around the account or even better yet, that one persona.
Thanks for that. So I hope that, again, what we're hoping to do is to help, independent if you're a SAM online or if you're a program office or CEO leader or even a marketer, like we're trying to provide you some of the framework that you can use and then share also internally. So hopefully you can start visualizing the process. So I guess ready for another story, Kate, maybe it's It'd be good to share the Under Armour with the group.
This is to me, it was another really fun example of the work that was done. And again, why it was interesting was we were going down a certain path. We were very clear about where we were going, but then once we applied some of this customer buying journey information to it, all of a sudden it changed our whole offering and how we approach the customer. So let me give you a little backdrop for you to really get into this story. So Under Armour, which is global, is really known for its fabric, the tech fabric of performance wear. And you know, they're probably on the whole list of that tech fabric, maybe, you know, fighting for fourth, and then Lululemon is taking market share from them, and so they're really in, you know, kind of that under, you know, they need to grow. And so they were looking for the white space of where do we have the opportunity to grow. So they split basically their business into two halves, or their offerings into two halves. One is Rush and one is Recovery. So Rush was everything about when you are in doing your sport, or when you're being the athlete, or so the 2 hours of tennis that you have, the 4 hours of golf, the 45 minutes or an hour or 4 hours of running. It was all of the apparel equipment that was in what that performance area. They said the white space is, what is everybody doing the other time? And Lululemon was kind of getting in this with, you know, then Lululemon gets it, then everybody else gets in there, but you know, the athleisure. But so then they started even looking a little bit further and saying, let's own them 24/7. And so there was, from an Under Armour standpoint, there was 8 hours of sleep that they could own the client and be number one and increase market share. So what do? They design a whole line based upon bedding and sleepwear. And for those of you that are in the Americas, one of our football players, one of our quarterbacks, that's widely known as Tom Brady, very heralded, very good, and now has left the Patriots. But they got him to be the spokesperson to say, hey, listen, it's not only about my sport, but it's about how I recover. And oh, by the way, here's my sleepwear and here's my bedding. And so right away, we knew that getting exposure on this new side of their business called Recovery was so critically important. So let me back up. That was the customer of the group that I was working with was a hotel group. So their account is Under Armour, or the customer's customer. They wanted to get more market share. So this whole work was done from the point of view of the hotel company. How do we get more market share from Under Armour? So here's what they did, is they doing the customer buying journey, they were looking at what is the point of inspiration for our guests, that we can introduce them, for us to be the point of inspiration for this whole area of the unexposed, the client or the client guest customer that Under Armour wouldn't be able to attack. So the first thing that we did, or they did, or that was done, is we mapped out the customer buying journey as it related to us, the hotel. So here it was, all the way from at the very beginning of booking to pre-arrival, arrival, stay, post-stay, and loyalty. That was the customer buying journey that the hotel company had impact on, way beyond the point of, or way before the point of sale, and the point of sale being hopefully one of their guests buying bedding from Under Armour. So then what they did was they got sales and marketing at the same table and said, this is the customer's buying journey. Now, what do we both have at different points of this point, opportunities for connection, that really can be an articulated differentiator. So let's kind of walk through this. One, at time of booking, we could look at the content of the website highlighting the recovery sleep system by Under Armour. In pre-arrival, we can put together content on the confirmation after booking that highlights again, hey, listen, you can upgrade your room and have one of our rooms with the Under Armour Recovery System sleep program. On arrival, we could have co-branded running routes where if I wanted to go running for 3 miles, it was the whole thing was sponsored by Under Armour, as well as their partnership with Garmin watches and Fitbit, or not Fitbits, but the Garmin fitness wearable. On arrival, again, we could ask them again, do you want to be upgraded to one of the rooms with the Under Armour bedding package? During the stay, we had of course, the wearable technology, the sync to the stay, and then we had also within the hotels the interchannel information where we could put in UA PR as far as the bedding system, along with the meetings that are going on in the building. From post-stay, we even had the Net Promoter Score that we could tease out the rooms that had the bedding package to see if they slept better, was their results better, did they have a better night's sleep, and get some insights that you could give back to Under Armour, as well as putting together a collaborative co-branding wellness program. We also could give guests connections to our their purchasing systems. So kind of similar to Westin with the Heavenly Bed, we could actually be a conduit or a distributor. And then lastly, within the loyalty program, we could do work with our loyalty guests and have a Warrior Wellness co-branding. So here's what, after they've done all this work in that communication of value to the customer, we have their value communicator. And here's what it sounded like. Knowing your focus is on growing your bedding line that's still that's in the early adoption phase of product is a key area to the recovery initiative. Having a connection with athletes and total customized programs from training to recovery creates a flywheel to create attention in the marketplace, as well as attracting customers that may not be athletes, but could also benefit from the product could be critical. We can help you to increase exposure within targeted customers, not only within athletes, but those wannabe athletes or are looking for recovery other than physical performance. We also believe we can expose you to new customer base that may not even be thinking of Under Armour as a lifestyle choice of overall health. We do this by using your bedding in our rooms and showcasing Under Armour Recovery Sleep System. We also want to look at how we can create a new product feedback so you are able to gain customer insights. So that was the Under Armour story and how they first started with understanding the customer to mapping the customer's buying journey as it relates to their offering, and then being able to see what do we have from a sales and marketing standpoint to really drive some articulated differentiators to help that customer expose that customer to other potential buyers.
Okay, so thanks for that story. Any question on that kind of enablement and the way to build your articulated communicator or differentiator? Before we move to the final and try to wrap all of this and put the bow on the actual work and give you a few framework to help also internally. Okay, so let's look at ignition and integration. So we've looked at the impact of account-based marketing. We've also deep dive and created that process for that kind of customer buying journey to the point of connection. And then we looked at using that to, go back, Kate, a little bit, using that to build your articulated differentiator. And again, leveraging prior to your sales, how you do that. So So what you have here is basically, again, to what Kate was saying, is that how can you, hopefully a tool or framework you can use to share your passion, but also we call it the value communication, is how can you tell your story internally and externally to bring people at the table. So the people you need at the table, how can you use it? And you can use it internally. And the way we like to build those framework and thought, like, again, is really a way of using it with everybody. So the who is the first one. You really need to look at, okay, who's in front of me? Internally or in your account, you can use it in both groups, but you need to customize the person in front of you. If you're talking to your CFO, or you're talking to your marketing group, or you're talking to your leader, not the same things can be relevant to them. So really kind of focus on what you want to tell them, but who's the person in front of you and what's important to them. Then the what is the customer buying journey or the patient journey. Like, again, how can you share your passion there and be able to kind of have the story of the customer journey and be able to bring them in? And then you look at the sweet spot. And the sweet spot for us is looking, it's really part of the communication, because it's about what makes sense for both sides. It's for the customer, but also your organization. And what can we have? And having that discussion. And even in that early phase where you want to engage with someone, like, get them part of the discussion, bring them on. What can they share? And then be part of the brainstorming. And to avoid what we were talking earlier about these silos and then just sharing, it's really about integrating them early on. The next is something that's dear to our heart, and we really work a lot on this, because it's being able to, independent of who, and you can do that with your leaders, with your teammates, with your accounts again, but what would be the outcome? What's the impact of doing this? If we're able to provide that solution closer to our customer needs and then really be able to provide the best solution, what would be the impact? And most importantly, for me, the one I love is the cost of inaction. It's really nice to use with your leaders, because what's the cost of not doing anything or not doing that kind of opportunity? And it could be a good way to sell to your leaders, in fact, like, what's the need and what you need in terms of making sure you advance this. Because the cost of inaction could be we lose the account, could be we're going to be part of being commoditized. We're not going to be able to differentiate ourselves. So there could be a huge cost. And if you can quantify it, even better. And then last but not least, it's making sure you go to the detail of who do we need at the table from both sides. People, the investment, and then make sure that you have the action as well there in terms of next step. Okay, so to try to put all of that together, we kind of have, we call it, like, again, the integration framework. It's about leveraging marketing. And what can marketing, and again, that's going to be in your slide deck. So we invite you to use it to try to communicate maybe internally what's the importance of marketing at the table in that journey of strategic account management. We call it COSA just because of the titles of the section, but it starts with, okay, if you look at your customer, your account, what's the role of sales? Sales has the role of the customer knowledge, and marketing brings the insight and the data and the market and some of the customer information. So they're kind of leading the customer buying journey, but it needs, the more you do it together, the better that customer buying journey is going to be. Then looking at that opportunity for connection that you derive from it, what are some of the product, the services, the capability, the partnership, or the alliance that you have that you can bring at the table? And there, coming back to that really nice picture, I wish my closet were as clean as the one we showed, but the garden of the closet is really the marketing. And they have a lot of information of things sometimes we don't know where in the field that is available, and things we don't think about. So use them as guardian of the closet there. Then finding the sweet spot, the impact between the customer and the us. So what is it? And making sure that this is valuable for both sides. Again, it's not about filling all the customer needs. It's about finding that sweet spot. And then looking at the action, the business case, and the use case, and building them. And marketing here is accountable to provide some of those business case and part of co-creation and scaling them. So you know also as a SAM what's going on elsewhere. You can start really sharing. So marketing can be part of expanding and having kind of with your, either if you have a program office or a center of excellence, being part of sharing those best business case and those use case to be able to leverage them. So hopefully that framework can help you communicate the value of cross-functional teams and the importance of marketing. So again, coming to the end, hopefully what we'd like to get from you guys is just put in the chat, what is the first step that you need to do, and what can you do in getting your marketing team involved? Write a few lines or a few words in the chat. Kirk, are you still online? I know you have a lot of ideas here. I want to put you on the stage.
Dominique, I know that when we chatted, one of the things that we spoke about was having the person in charge of the Center of Excellence help coordinate that, or if you were a SAM, to have, you know, the head of the SAM program or sales leader work to align internally on it.
Yeah, and I like that because maybe, again, for me, the first step, and for us when we discuss, it's not about, again, rocket science and having something that's complicated. It's about having people. So to your point, the Center of Excellence, if you don't have a Center of Excellence, get the marketing leader involved. And it's about being viral internally and starting and trying it for one account, and then kind of after that expanding it, because then you, even internally, you build those business case, you can have your proof. So Max, you're sharing insight is at the heart of this, and marketing brings key capability here. Totally. I think that the insight that they can bring, but it's also being able to kind of be that voice. I know, Max, you're a voice to make sure that that cross-functional happens in the organization. And I think it's about, bringing people at the table and trying it and doing trial and error and iteration, but at least trying with one account and then being able to expand. Okay.
I love that idea of the pilot, Dominique. I think that works well. I think with a lot of our customers, whether it's a SAM program, but especially this, to your point, you have the proof point and can expand from there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Libby. So, yeah, and I see now that I see a pop-up that Peggy's sharing, making a closer examination of the point of inspiration, for sure. And always having that in mind, what happens before the point of sales, to be able to, again, having broader value, differentiate yourself. And again, that's the role of marketing in this that we're true believer of, Kate and I. So let's wrap this up. Again, the pathway through the account-based marketing journey and to create that SAM synergy. What we tried to go through, Kate and I, was, again, first, understand your portfolio of customer, but then trying to get to those specific persona. And the more surgical you are, the better it's going to be. So really kind of looking at the portfolio being segmented. Then when you have that, again, the targeted customer, like making sure that you select it and you have one, then you look at, again, building that customized buying journey, which again is a critical kind of, marketing is a critical participant to this. And then that creates these opportunity for connection. And you can look after that to which channel. Again, marketing can help. And again, those channel and marketing, digital marketing, all this is an opportunity also to synergize with what you're doing as a SAM and face-to-face. And last but not least, using that to have articulate a differentiator and really building how you're going to communicate. And that's what we call that synergy of 1 + 1 = 3. Hopefully, like, we were able to give you a few tools, and again, I know, like, it's really kind of where we just went to the high level, and I guess the first layer of how to do this, and in the work we do, Kate and I just love kind of workshopping around that and deep diving so we can have sustainability. But hopefully, like, again, in the slides that are going to be provided to you, you have a few toolbox you can use, and you can help also to bring marketing at the table, as well as communicate in a crisp and relevant manner to either your colleagues, your leaders, or your account. And again, we'd love to have your feedback when you use them, but feel free to try to use them and share them internally. Kate, take us forward.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. It's always fun to have a conversation with folks that are in your same space. And we believe in the chaos theory and are fascinated by it. If a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the world, it can create a tsunami on the other. And that really the reason why the butterfly speaks to us is not only this idea of reinventing oneself, but also the idea of being at the point of inspiration, being at the beginning of the beginning, that can cause a tsunami within, a positive tsunami within your organization. And you know what, this can be daunting, so you don't have to go it alone. There's some great, as Dominique mentioned, there's some great additional material that's available to you that further dives into this, as well as some of the articles that we have in regards to this this customer buying journey, and of course Dominique's piece in the COE of building a global team. Thank you so much to Libby and to Sama and to all of you for joining today. It's just a blast to talk about something you're very passionate about.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks,
Great.
everyone. Back to you.
Thanks, Kate and Dominique. Thank you again for just this great presentation today. I just learned so much and a lot of really practical examples. To Kate and Dominique's point, please keep the conversation going, right? We know this is a virtual conference, but you know, feel free to email, to call them. You can contact Sama. We can get in touch with them. We can connect you with others that have maybe experienced and overcome a challenge that maybe you have right now. So I do implore you to use the network if you certainly need it. Thank you to our audience for taking the time to join today. We hope you enjoyed this presentation, and again, reach out for those valuable takeaways. Tomorrow, we will be having the session Boosting Your Strategic Account Management Program Through a Product Management Lens. Once again, thank you all and have a great day.